Okay, short presentation on the latest project that we're running at the City Council here in Rotterdam. We're doing pretty much the same procedure, or the same FCP procedure, but it's for service this time, so it might inspire you to do, it doesn't always have to be about investment innovation, this is about service innovation. So if you want to...
Yeah.
The next one, please.
Yeah.
So what we're doing actually, the City Council has an obligation to transport people who are not able to use public transportation or transportation by their own. And if you feel like you have such a problem, you go to the City Council and they give you an evaluation, and if you fit the criteria, you get like a travel pass. We do that for 35,000 people here in the city. I think that's a lot, and 1 in 20 persons have a permit to use this type of transportation. And this is the football stadium of Feyenoord. It's pretty much, if you cut it like that, so all the people on that side, it's that group. And it costs the City Council about 32 million every year. It's a pretty big number. We also do small contracts for swimming for children, and also for gymnastics. So, but that's the small parts of the contract. Just to give you a rough estimate of what we're talking about. There's something strange about this type of service, because they transport so many people every day, and it goes well every day. But if you just make one little mistake with all those people, you have a big problem, and you get the headlines in the news. And this is a girl who was left behind. She was handicapped mentally, and she was left behind in the bus somewhere in Utrecht. And you don't want your transportation in the news like that. So we knew that this was something that has a high image profile. And the thing is, everybody responds to this. And actually the piece of text here says, this is all due to European tendering because it's all focused on price. So somehow a girl is being left behind in a small van, and it's because of European tendering. This is how it works. So we knew that was a big problem. The other problem was that in Holland, at least, the professional taxi companies who do these types of work, they're going bankrupt in a very high rate. They're either coming up for bankruptcy or giving back contracts because they just bought them. The marketplace is really messed up a little bit because it's over competitive, so everybody just, the last time I get €8 for just a normal drive, so now I have to do it for 7 because else I don't get the contract, but it costs 12. It doesn't get any cheaper than 12. So this is a real disturbing market mechanism that's in place right now. So that was also one of our points that we need to take into consideration before we started the procurement. So what we did a market sounding, of course, and we got some information on what is the problem here, guys. And how can we solve this? And one of the things was that they didn't seem to focus on the same type of solutions. So we're parties saying, just keep it the same, I'm fine with it. I have a small company, that's okay. There were other companies saying, you have to radically change it. We have to integrate public transportation, innovative, and other companies saying, I don't know what to do, but I really want something to change. Didn't like European tendering, negative margins of profit due to the European tendering, and focus strongly on savings. And this is a bad thing. I mean, there are 180 vans on the streets right now, and we know that sometimes the drivers do not get paid if there's not somebody in the bus. So they drive like maniacs through the streets, literally, to get to the next customer. That's something we really don't want to We don't want to have that image on this contract. Mostly the client, the one we're providing transportation for, where are they? I mean, that's not. That was something that bothered me a lot. It wasn't even something they put on the agenda of the conversation. It was just clients. I mean, it's about empty vans. It's about efficiency. It's about money. So that was something disturbing. So. No, we're gonna leave this behind. So what we came up with is, if we're going to do a tender, we have to think about our unmet needs, and we have to think about it as a city council. So first of all, we're there for the people who need the transportation. So we said, if we're going to do a tender here, the client must be in the center of service. Every aspect of the things the company comes up with, efficiency-wise, or if it's a phone call or whatever, it doesn't. We have to relate that to what does it mean for the customer. And we said, we have 32 million, and it has to be done for this. We have no idea how we can make it happen, or how we can maybe have an OV chip card. You probably used it here in Holland. Maybe you have to use the same system for this service. It's not in place right now, so just give us some ideas on what we're going to. And we also said it has to contribute to the durability. It has to contribute to a program called Laarthuis, which is basically focusing on keeping people longer in their own home. But if we do that, we also have to consider that if we keep them home, we don't want to get them lonely. And we think these two stay home longer and loneliness programs are something that is a primary aspect of transportation. Because if you are a driver, you can see if somebody's lonely. You know if somebody usually gets in the bus on Monday morning, and when she doesn't, it might be something wrong with this person. So we think we have something that we can achieve with this program.
Well, then it must be always the same driver who's picking up the same client.
Yeah, that's something that's true. That's very true. Do we want the same driver? We also transport, for example, children who are very autistic. I think it's the same in English, right? Sometimes, if they don't have the same driver, the kid is off for a week. His mind is off for a complete week. And if the driver doesn't stay out of the door for 50 minutes, he needs to see the car for 50 minutes before he's able to get into the car. And the taxi company gets €8 for that particular guy, or for that kid. It's not very helpful, is it? Right. So, yes. So we're going to do the competitive dialogue here as well. And actually what we said is, you have a lot of expertise, Market, so why don't you tell us what we need to do to make it more profitable for you? And one of the things that we're seeing in the traditional tenders is that it's focused around the margin of profit. And it's not focused around reducing the amount of taxis that's necessary for the community. So it's 35,000 people, but what if we can focus on making it 34,000 and having a cheaper alternative instead of trying to get it from €8 to €7.90. And one of our biggest achievements, I think, is the integration of the complete customer journey from the client. One next, please. So actually, what we came up with, we did a very extensive research on the client base that we have, and that was that was done by a user design experience consultancy firm, and they said, actually, if you look at transportation for these groups, it's based on two element features: punctuality, vulnerability. Everybody has a certain punctuality need, but also a vulnerability need. And that's not the same every day. But we can come up with four typical. You can come up with 4 typical persons that move around in this matrix. So that's what they did, and we've actually supplied. They supplied us with these types of cards. We'll leave them here. It's in Dutch, so it's probably not very understand. I would like to have them back though, but we've. And what you see on the cards is that the first page is just like a description of what does a typical Mildred or a typical Guus or a typical Ilse, what is her typical day? What does she encounter? What is her experience with transportation? Why does she need it? How much punctuality is usually for these types of persons important? For example, we're now focusing on getting people the quickest way from A to B. But actually Mildred said to us, she said, look, I don't want to go quickly from A to B. I mean, it's shitty weather. I don't want to walk on the street. I want to have a tour of the whole city and then come to B. And if that means that we can optimize the planning of the route of the taxi, that's a win-win situation. She doesn't mind to stay in a taxi for an hour longer, as long as she meets people. That's pretty cool. So on the back side, you can see the customer journey. And that's also in English, but I can show you with the next slide. Actually, what it says is the customer journey consists of booking a drive, getting ready to leave, the drive itself, and getting to the final destination. So those are the 4 headlines of the customer journey, and that's divided in smaller steps, as you can see. But the traditional tenders only focus on the drive. And what came out of the research that we did is that if you want to have a good experience, the drive doesn't matter. What matters is somebody friendly on the phone? Does somebody understand what I'm going through? Does somebody understand that I need to be on the birthday of my grandson on time because I want to be the first one to give my grandson his present? Also, the waiting for the taxi. Sometimes a taxi driver rings the doorbell and he has a target that he has to fill his taxi within 5 minutes. And if somebody has a bad day with a broken hip and it takes 10 minutes, the taxi actually leaves. I mean, that's horrible, but it's daily practice. And nobody's beneficiary because the drive is empty. Maybe the old man who has hip problems comes down for nothing because, you know, it's a horrible situation. So actually we said, what are you going to do to improve client experience of this type of transportation? So, what we said is we need to serve the goals of our client for you as a supplier, because we don't want you to give back the contract after 2 years, but also our goals of, you know, we have to have this transportation to keep people, to have them stay home longer. And also, of course, because that's something that you do with competitive dialogue, we looked for new types of suppliers, like ICT suppliers. You know, Uber? Uber's a taxi company, but actually it's an ICT supplier, right? That's the whole business model. This is just a great introduction of new types of ICT to get cheaper taxis. But also car manufacturers. If we want to do something with durability, we have to get electrical taxis. So we just included Nissan, BMW directly into our tender procedure. We incorporated the public transport company into our procedure. There are a lot of small groups, even marketing companies, communication companies, who says, you know, it might not be about the drive itself, but I can make it as if it's the best drive you will ever experience. It might not change anything about the factual drive, but it might change the way you feel about it. So also the contract length we did for 7 years because we think it's necessary to provide room for example, for the car manufacturers. If it's for 2 years, they're never going to supply us with 100 taxis, 100 electric taxis. So we need some critical mass to make innovation possible. So that's why we did it for a long time. So we did some market meetings days. We did 4. Actually, we're going to go for 5. So that you just saw 1 with the FCP of the bed washing facility. That was good. So we are doing 5, and we try to make it fun as well. So I got some pictures. Yes, I can do another one. So what you see here, this is funny, right? What you see here are the different types of suppliers, and they all got their own little van with the company name on it. And if somebody finds it interesting, hey, this is an interesting company, you can just put your business card in it, and everybody takes his car away at the end of the day. So you get a new business card, you can make new connections. So we try to make it fun as well. We try to make it a little bit interactive, not too much about a tender procedure, but more about getting to know each other. Yeah, so this is our timeline. It's a bit of an old picture, but we are getting the pre-selection documents at the end of this month. So 29th of January is quite a tension time for us. And then we're going to look for 3 consortia with whom we are going to do the competitive dialogue with. And we hope to finish up somewhere September, October of this year with a competitive dialogue with the 3. We're not going to do any further reductions unless the party itself says we're not going to participate anymore. And then we're going to do the final offer phase and hope to sign a contract somewhere in January next year. And I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Stunned silence. Any questions? Jeroen. Great. Struck me. Oh yes. Have a question here.
When you do the market consultation, you invite all the parties together.
Yes.
And you discuss with all the parties together.
Yes.
At one time.
Good question, because we never ever talk about possible solutions. So if you can see the themes of the day, it's usually about inspiration. So we try to invite speakers from outside who have no relationship with the contents of the assignment. And we never try to ask them, what do you think is a proper solution? We only ask them, what are you good at? And what would you need? What type of competence would you need to provide a good solution? So you get like a question-answer, thank you, question-answer type of marketplace, which is not around solutions, but it's based around, I need these types of contractors to provide a better solution.
How do you recruit companies for the dialogue?
So you mean that participated in the...
In the pre-dialogue, like the meeting you had with the small cars?
Yeah.
Were anyone invited? Or
Yeah, well, actually, a good question. We've used current networks as we used the newspapers again. We use Twitter a lot, LinkedIn, so just the normal social media channels. But also, we have a very extensive network from the economy unit within the city council, and they have a lot of networks around ICT, and they say, you know, we have some money for research and development for ICT here in Rotterdam. So that has no relationship with our project, but they have the network. So we just say to them, you know, can you please present your network with our project?
Okay.
And that worked very, very well. So yes, we did the normal announcements, you know, on the European tender platform, but that's not so effective.
No, that's not very selling.
Yeah. Wrong.
Maybe it's interesting because there's a lot of offline communication.
Yes.
How much online communication do you use? Do you use any online communication?
Yeah, we do a newsletter. We have a website where you can go to, but it's pretty basic, to be honest.
And do you recruit nationally or internationally?
No, this is a Dutch. It's all done in Dutch. If you want, we could have done it internationally, but we think that because you need cars and you need like telephone people, and that it's less likely for foreign companies to get themselves interested for this type of service. Other than for the bed washing facility is far more likely to have such international interest.
That's a deliberate choice you make very early on.
Yeah, because we have to explain this to our citizens as well. I mean, they can also see this information, and if it's all in English, they say, wow, I don't want somebody from a foreign country to provide me with the transport. I need to be sure. So, it's public information, so...
Do you involve the service users or their representatives, or will you involve them in the decisions around the final three?
No, we're actually going to ask the clients themselves.
Yeah.
We have a client representative boards, several. We're introducing them into the competitive dialogue as well, and we're not using them as organizations that are going to be able to say we want this company, but they are involved as a consultant.
As an advisory
board, yes, indeed. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
So given the value, you don't expect, let's say non-Dutch parties
It's not going to happen.
to say, hey guys,
No. No, not going to happen.
It's a
We
very
have
different...
zero interest from abroad.
It's a very basic service which is provided.
I think so,
locally.
yeah.
Yeah.
For good reasons.
Although, having said that, my comment was that I think in the UK, certainly in England, we take a very different view of that. It's a much more competitive. It's expected to be my local train service, which runs 2 carriage trains around, a small number of stations nearby. Is I can't remember who it's owned by now. It was Deutsche Bahn at one time, and then it's sold to another, and it made for. I know it's the Netherlands Railways now. Nobody even thinks who is it who owns it. All they think about is we've got terrible trains.
Yeah.
The other point I was going to make was that I thought your point was very interesting about opening up the tendering description and process to be wider than just the drive, to be the
customer journey.
The customer journey, because essentially this is just reintroducing human values into a system that had somehow lost them.
Yeah.
And the comparison that I was making in my own head was that locally we have quite a strong volunteer service of volunteer drivers who do a lot of this kind of work, and they're coordinated by the social services department of the council. But it's not a formal contract. I think they're paid their expenses, but they don't get a salary. It really is a volunteer service. But they do all of that exactly. They wait for people. They're the same person who goes every week to take Mrs. X to go and get her shopping. And the interesting thing is that they're nearly all retired police officers, paramedics, nurses.
We have the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's subsidized. So the volunteer organization runs on subsidies for the car, for example.
Yeah.
But there's a very strict line that you have to be able to get to the bus by yourself.
Oh, yes.
So if, for example, you're in a wheelchair,
Yes.
you're not allowed to. And actually, there have been fights on the street about the grey area, because there's going to be a grey area somewhere, and that it's a commercial professional drive or a volunteer drive. So there is discussion and debate where the crossing lies. But then again, we can run the whole city for the volunteers driving for I thought it was 600,000 euros annually instead of 32 million. So it's a lot cheaper to have them into the. It's not the same amount of people who use it, but it's for us. It's interesting to see if we can get more people into the informal transportation. That's how we call it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Jeroen, is this method of tendering a reaction of the failure of the former one?
No, I think it's something. I don't think it has, because it's not failing. To be honest, I mean the tendering is succeeding extensively.
No, let me explain my question. Is this method of tendering a reaction of the failure of the former one? The former one was
traditional.
really about the price.
Yeah, I think I understand your question.
Very experienced companies
Mhm.
who brought children from their home to the school, for instance, were kicked out of the last tender because they were too expensive. They gave a lot of more service than the cheaper.
Yeah, true.
So,
Yeah.
What I see now, your method, is that quality is coming back into
Yeah.
the tender.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, what we saw when we evaluated other tender procedures, we saw that the distinctive value of quality was so low between the companies. They all were bad, There was not one company who said, there's not so much to choose from a quality perspective. So the only point you can choose on was price. And that became a whole different, wrong kind of mechanism. But that is the way it stands right now. You don't get quality when you get into those vans. It's dirty.
Do you think home care services will go this way as well?
Yeah, we know for sure. We know that they are going to participate as one of the members of the consortia in this tender. So we know home care organizations as well as healthcare organizations are going to participate as a consultant or as somebody who knows the client better than the taxi driver. So we know they are going to participate. And that's something that's quite new.
Good point about the home care, because it's the obvious next step, isn't it?
I think so,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. And in fact, your points that you made a moment ago about asking the companies, what can we do to make it possible for you to provide the service, is exactly the question I would be asking of, for example, I would expect the same question to go out to nursing homes, for example, which certainly in the UK are struggling. I would say the majority are at the moment operating at a loss, and the rest are marginal, and there's a real danger that the whole system will collapse. And someone needs to go to them and say, well, what is it?
What do you need?
What do you need in order for you as businesses to be viable in the future and to provide good quality?
So the nursing homes in the UK are procured as well?
Yes. Well, some are private, but there are some still that are run by local authorities, for example. But they're all paid for ultimately through either a few people pay privately, but many are, even in private nursing homes, are funded at least partially through the local authorities. So
are you guessing how much is the population that will be served by this?
Guessing? No. We know for sure. 35,000 people have some sort of a permit to use transportation paid by. Yeah, they have a permit. I don't know the exact numbers. But it's we have a lot of numbers, but this is the most viable one. Yeah.
Because the amount is very big.
Yeah.
I was surprised at the
Me too.
amount.
I was surprised by it as well. We know, probably a lot of people do not use their permit, but I think that's
No, but about the money that is
32 million. Yeah. Well, sometimes, for example, we have small children who need to go to a special school. They sometimes are in the north of the country. They have to go there every day. It costs us around €20,000 for a kid per month to get them to school.
It's not only the bathroom. It's not only Rotterdam. It's not that.
Well, it's based on if you live here, if you're registered in this city, then we have to provide the transportation. That's how the system works. So sometimes it's not, it works in our advantage, but sometimes it doesn't.
So you have 35,000 of special cases, more or less.
Yes, yeah. And that's mainly based on the elderly. I mean, the elderly above 75 can use this for free anyway, but they're not part of the 35,000, but above 65 you can use it with a permit, and that's, this works pretty funny too, because if your neighbor has it, you want to have it too, regardless if you need it. So that whole system, we're going to try to renew it to the future.
But will you control how many in effect will use the system? By any chance, instead of 35,000, is 25,000? Does the cost not become excessive?
Yeah, you may, if we're going to be the victim of our own success, if it's a very comfortable drive, everybody wants to use it. Yeah, well...
No, the contrary. There will be many persons who want the service because they see their neighbor,
Yeah.
and after they don't use it.
Yes.
It's like, building a big hospital, and then
Yep.
you have a 30% of occupancy. It happens.
No, well, actually, we're doing the tender, of course, on factual transportation numbers, and that's a very big list. It's hundreds and thousands of records that we have. That's where we have the dialogue on. So it's not only those 35,000 people. It's mainly the
Safer. than
yeah, of
one.
course, yeah.
Okay, thank you again, Jeroen. Thank you. And,